Today's podcast is brought to you by Blue Canary. The bird has landed on beautiful Bainbridge Island, conveniently located at 499 Madison Avenue. ASE Master Technician Clint Ramsey brings over 15 years of experience, award-winning diagnostic skill, and a desire to reinvent the automotive repair experience. Schedule an appointment online at bluecanary.biz or call them today at 206-451-4220. I got something for your mind, body, and soul. I got something for your mind, body, and soul.
You have found the B.I.STANDER Podcast. Now here's your host with the most, Tiny Tim.
Hopefully. What's good, Podcastville? You found the B.I.STANDER Podcast. I'm your host, Tiny Tim, the Mr. Rogers of podcasting, the king of casual. Hey, tell a friend, be a friend, subscribe to Patreon, and happy generic time of day to you. Today, my guests are Alorie and Leif of Tideland Quarterly, a new magazine serving Kitsap County. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having us, Tim.
Thanks for coming in. Leif, how you doing?
Nice to be here.
Nice.
Finally, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a long time. How long have you two been working on this project?
It's been almost a year that I've been kicking the idea around and first talked to Leif about it.
Yeah, we first talked about it around what was it? It was last March.
Yeah.
It was a spring equinox bonfire. We were sitting around, and Alorie broke the news to a group of us that she was thinking about starting a magazine.
Why?
Yeah, good question. So I had been, my background is journalism, and I started out in business tech journalism in the Bay Area, and then bounced around some different areas, and it was always just sort of my common thread was writing and journalism, and I continued that here when I moved to Bainbridge, almost coming up on a dozen years ago, and had been writing for Bainbridge Island magazine, and when they paused publishing, kind of like right in the beginning of COVID in 2020. And so they were like my main gig. And I started to look around and find some other places to write for. And then as, a year went by, and it was clear that they weren't going to be restarting. And so it got me thinking, freelance journalism is fun. It's kind of a hustle, and always having to sell editors on your ideas. And I thought, what if I'm the idea? I'm the editor, and I can greenlight all my ideas. And so that was sort of the beginning, was thinking about filling that void that Bainbridge Island magazine left. But they did an awesome job, and so that's how that started.
It's ironic that you guys are coming out with the launch party this week, correct?
Yep, this Friday.
And they just reinstated their magazine this week as well.
Actually, no. So you're referring to PNW Bainbridge, which is the new magazine that just arrived in everyone's mailboxes a few days ago. We like to think of them as the co-opetition. They're great people, and they're doing a great job.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to Allison.
Yeah, and so that's Ali Shookman, the editor, was the editor at Bainbridge Island magazine. But it's a new magazine that she's started. It's not the same. That she hasn't restarted Bainbridge Island magazine. It's PNW Bainbridge is a new thing that she and Natalie have launched, and we congratulate them. They're doing a great job.
Yeah, you guys are a little bit more broad in covering the whole West Sound, right?
Yep.
Right. Yeah. So I know Allie because writing for Bainbridge Island magazine, she was the editor there, and I knew she was thinking about starting a Bainbridge lifestyle magazine. So when Leif and I were kind of talking about how would we do this, what would our, how would we be different enough, to have our community support 2 magazines. And so the idea was to look beyond Bainbridge and kind of have a more regional view of things. And just with COVID too, it seems like we're all, exploring our own backyard a little bit more. And we thought this would be a great way to help people do that and connect to the broader Kitsap, West Sound, all there is to explore and find here. Culture and food and nature, personalities.
Leif, you have a background in journalism as well as podcasting. Tell the people in Podcastville what you've done in the past.
So I started, I'm the child of magazine editors. My parents started a magazine in the early 70s called New Age Journal, which was kind of a alternative health and spirituality lifestyle.
Mother Jones.
Mother Jones is definitely in the extended family there. I'm a big fan of Mother Jones. But so my parents started New Age Journal back in the early 70s, and then my dad started a magazine called Utney Reader, my last name, that was sort of like a Reader's Digest of the alternative independent press, kind of like a print blog of all of the alt-weekly papers and kind of progressive political and cultural
what we have
magazines.
On the phone now, it's a cornucopia, like Medium.
Exactly. It was sort of
Medium?
yeah. I mean, it was sort of like Medium, or it was sort of like a print blog before the internet existed, and this diverse digest of ideas and trends and people, and I went to work there after college for 8 years. From 98 to 2006, I was the online editor most of that time, and also a writer and editor on the print side. And then moved out here to Bainbridge in 2006. And in the year before I left Utney Reader, I started a podcast there, the Utney Cast, which I did for a couple of years remotely from here.
Very good podcast, by the way.
Why, thank you.
You should get back into it.
I've thought about it.
Now that it's all full of people.
Yes, I mean, space is a little bit crowded.
Yeah, 5 years ago when I started this, there was probably 500,000 podcasts, and now there's 2.5 million of active podcasts and big money being thrown around.
Yeah.
Not to me, though, so go subscribe on Patreon.
Hey, I'm there, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Thank you. Hey, so
pleasure.
some of the soul of the West Sound is personal stories. I'm really into society, culture, and human interest stories. I think that's what I try to have an eclectic feature on this podcast. Alorie, can you tell me one of your favorite meetings in just starting this up, writing your first articles for this particular magazine?
One of the articles that you want me to talk about what we've got in this first issue?
Well, just one that's kind of personal to you that you enjoyed writing.
Okay, yeah, sure. I really enjoyed our cover story I wrote. It's a feature about people, the community and the people that swim in the Sound. We call it wild swimming. And I noticed over...
Not me.
over the pandemic, I just started seeing more people in the water and wondering about it. And their little like colorful buoys that they wear to make themselves visible. And a lot of people are in there with wetsuits, but some people are just in there with bathing suits. And I was just like so curious, like, wow, how do you do that? And, what's involved? And a friend of mine, Kelly Danielson, she is incredible. She's year-round in her swimsuit out there in Port Blakely and other places around the island. And during the early days of the pandemic, she swam in stages around Bainbridge Island, and she posted about it on social media, and I was following her, and I just thought, what a great story. And as I dug into it, I just found more interesting people. Pete Saludos, he's an incredible photographer on the island. He's part of that community. He prefers swimming in lakes, but but he met Kelly and started photographing her. So there was just this great art to go with the story.
Yeah, he also does Greg Nance, the guy that runs around the island.
Yes.
He's taken some beautiful shots.
Beautiful shot. I think he's drawn to like athletic endeavors of all types. So, so luckily enough, actually, and I know him because his granddaughter and my daughter are in school together and good friends. So we had this personal connection, and he invited me out last August. He and a group of other swimmers go out to Wildcat Lake.
Not familiar.
Yeah, it's near Bremerton. It's a beautiful little lake tucked away. It's really clean water and no motor.
Wildcat, you said?
Wildcat Lake Park, yeah. And it's just like adjacent to Bremerton and Seebeck. It takes like 45 minutes or something to get out there. So he dragged me out, of course, as a photographer. He wanted to get there for sunrise. So we drove out. I think we met at his house at like 5:30 a.m. and went out there. And I mostly watched. They swim like the whole length of the lake and back, which is like a mile and a half or something. And I just sort of bobbed around in the water. It was really nice and warm. But and then he took some shots of some of the other swimmers that are in the story. So that was a great piece, and I think the whole aspect of just how people finding a way to get out and thrive in some aspect during COVID was interesting. Like, it takes such tenacity to be out there in the water, and I thought that was sort of a good example of finding a way to stay healthy and connected during such
I just
a tough
fell in
time.
love with my refrigerator during the pandemic. Recently came out as fat.
Reminds me of Jurassic Park. Life finds a way, right?
Yes. Yes, it does. I'm ready for some sunshine. Looking forward to going to Arizona in 2 weeks, and then hopefully come back and the sun will start appearing around here a bit, and get going back on the fitness track. Hey, I see that you guys are going to cover food. Mm-hmm. I'm a big foodie. I can taste stuff for you guys and describe it to you, and then you can pen it to paper.
Yeah, give us your tips.
Yeah.
On food, local food.
Did you guys do any articles on food this first episode?
We did.
You doing like ethnic foods or?
So.
Don't tell me what's that Grubhub or Grub Hut.
Grub Hut. Yeah. No. We love Grub Hut, but
they're in our dining guide. Actually,
they are in our dining guide. Yes. So in the back of the magazine, we've got a dining guide that's got just short little blurbs about dozens of restaurants and eateries all over Kitsap County. But
we plan to try each one of them.
Yep. No, we already did. Working on it. Mateo and I just went over to the boat shed in Bremerton the other day.
That was pretty good.
Lunch. Yeah, it was really good.
Nice location for sure.
Incredible location. But the first piece I actually wrote was kind of a combination food story and business profile about Suquamish seafoods. That is just a really interesting story about. It's one of the businesses that the Suquamish tribe owns, and they operate it out of Suquamish, just across the bridge from Bainbridge Island. They've got a big processing facility there where they clean and package all kinds of shellfish that they harvest from. They've got an oyster farm in Agate Pass, and they've got and these floats out in the middle of the pass, and so they're like doing hundreds of bags of dozens of oysters per week.
Mm-hmm. And don't they have a gooey duck operation as well?
And that's actually their biggest line of business.
Is that out in Brownsville area?
No, it's based right in Suquamish. They've got a boat
the boats
there.
Must all come together to
ship them out. They might dock it in Brownsville. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I definitely have, because I've been out there and seen the crates of gooey ducks come out in just massive amounts, and I'm just like, wow.
Well, their biggest line of business is exporting wild gooey ducks from Puget Sound to China.
Yeah,
and it's an incredible delicacy that'll fetch hundreds of dollars for. It's like $150 for like a 2 or 3 pound gooey duck.
Right.
And
but you can get hot buttered gooey duck yaki at Subi for $11.
You
so
can.
I would
That's right.
suggest that very highly.
And you can
You're on
also
beautiful Bainbridge Island.
buy gooey duck straight from the source at the Suquamish Seafoods retail shop up by the Mozzie shop across the parking lot from the Shell station.
They
there.
seem to always be out of seafood, though. Truthfully, when I go,
Really?
yeah, I have
You
better
going on
chance.
the right days? I mean, they're only open like Wednesday through Saturday or Sunday.
Right.
But
I usually do better with the guy in the van just up the street. He's got the salmon smoked and it's filleted on some sticks, all traditional. And
nice.
yeah, I try to honor him because I know I've seen him on that corner in that van for 20 years,
Yep.
selling stuff on the side of the road.
Yep.
So,
Well, so we've got that article, and we included a recipe that Suquamish Seafoods provided of it's baked oysters in panko with nettles, and it's a recipe that was written up by the woman who is the tribe's head of traditional
foods.
traditional foods and plant medicines. She teaches tribe members about how to use local plants as food
Very
and medicine.
cool. I mean-
Azure is her name?
Yeah, Azure Beret.
Azure Beret.
yeah, I mean, our whole family is foragers. My son and I love to forage, and you blanch the nettles for, what do you call it? The green sauce, not the red sauce.
Pesto.
Pesto.
Yeah, you can make pesto, chimichurri.
Yeah, pesto I'm allergic to with pine nuts. So now it's almonds with the nettles and stuff with olive oil. But
I didn't know you'd done that. I did the same thing a few years ago.
we have such an abundance of forageable things, such as mushrooms, huckleberries, blueberries. We can walk around here and kind of eat. It's nice, real nice. Getaways. I just talked to the founders of Here app, which is an app that's hooked up to your GPS, and you get to a certain area, and a story will pop up on your phone, and you'll decide whether to pull off at that historical mark. And they're trying to do a lot of indigenous people, and they're longer form stories, because the ones that pop up on your GPS are like a 4-minute, 400 words or less, and then there's another portion of the application that's long form indigenous people stories and stuff like that. What kind of stories, have you, and it's kind of based on getaways when you're on a road trip. So what kind of getaways have you been impressed with learning and writing about the getaways in this beautiful Olympic National Forest area?
I think we just have no shortage of cool places to explore and discover. But in our first issue here, we did a day trip to Port Townsend and trying to kind of get, a lot of us have been to Port Townsend and maybe we've kind of skimmed the surface. We've stuck to the main little drag there. So we tried to kind of go off the beaten path and take people to cool places they might not have heard of. Like, I think it's relatively new, this cool little pub called the Pour House, P-O-U-R. I was going to play on words. And they just have this great location that's practically on the beach. Their patio out there, and they got all the local beers and some wine and just very laid back kind of local scene. And I had been up there, I think last June, and discovered that place, and I thought that was sort of the genesis for that story. Like, let's take people to Port Townsend's so great, it's so easy to get to, and let's spotlight our neighbors up here and how unique it is.
I love talking about Chimacum. I think that's a cool spot. Recently, I went up to Port Gamble and learned about the extraterrestrial ghost type, what do you call it, hyperactivity up there, and the stories that were being told there. That would be a great feature for you guys to go do.
Yeah, I've heard about this ghost thing in Port Gamble.
Yeah, I've heard about that too.
So I went up to the scary house and down in the basement of Pope Industries underneath the general store, and you just hear all kinds of crazy sounds. Building's really old. It's old timberland area. It's a real neat place.
Yeah, it's been really fun since getting involved with this project. Just to this is, I used to work at a national magazine, and it's a very different beast from a local magazine focused on a specific geographic area and telling the stories of the place where you are. And so it's been really cool just to experience kind of looking at this place where I've lived for going on 16 years with fresh eyes. and be, thinking about, wow, what, just every day looking around as I'm going through my life around here and thinking about what are the stories I could be telling. And so part of that is like some of the stuff obviously is going to make it into the pages of the magazine, but we're also doing a lot of stuff on social media to kind of bridge the gap between each of these quarterly issues and keep our audience engaged and involved. And so like, just the other day I'm up in Bremerton because my son wanted to get, he likes to go to the Black Barbershop over in downtown Bremerton. And just like your son, I actually took him in there once recently. And while he's getting his haircut, I go and explore around the town. And I found the Natural Foods Co-op in Bremerton that opened just a couple of years ago. And went in and got some fruit and a few other things and chatted with the clerk, just learned a little bit about this place. And I love food co-ops. I used to live in Minnesota, and there's a ton of them there. And we don't have one here on Bainbridge.
But you live in a co-op.
I do live in a co-op, but it's not a food co-op.
Well, it is when it's your turn to cook.
Yes, that's true. But I just found myself taking some photos of the place, and who knows, maybe that'll turn into a story about another cool local business or a food thing in a future issue. But it's also something I can just post. Yeah, well, and I can post stuff up on our Instagram and Facebook pages and tell those stories too.
And what are those pages? I thought you were a pro.
Tideland. It's Tideland magazine, and our handle on both on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter is Tideland Mag. So it's Instagram/Tideland Mag or
there
Facebook,
you go.
Twitter, etc.
See, now people can go see it.
Tidelandmag.com. Yeah.
See what we did right there? It's promotion. Callback. Hey, Bremerton Theater is something what is it? Bremerton Admiral Theater?
The Admiral Theater. Uh-huh.
That has a rich history, right?
It does.
It does. Tell me another story.
We got all kinds of stories. You want to hear more about what we've got in this issue?
No, I want to save some of that for people to pick up the magazine. But yeah, give me...
We've got
another one.
One fun thing. A couple fun things. So I have a friend, Mary Jo Davis. She and her family spend a lot of time on their sailboat year-round. They were just out there last week. And she's a designer, does graphic design, and she keeps a sketchbook. And when she showed me her sketchbook from her sailing trips, I was like, ooh, that's got to go in my
They're
magazine.
Amazing. They're beautiful.
So we created like a ongoing series for her called Salish Scenes. And,
beautiful.
And so her sketches are in there. I could show the radio people.
Yeah, it's a 2-page spread in each issue that Mary Jo illustrates. And the first one is going to be about Blake Island and a little day trip that she and her family took to Blake Island.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And a little story about they found an octopus on the rock, and so she does just a short story about finding the octopus.
Sketching with watercolor as well? Mm-hmm. It's very nice.
Yeah. And then another fun one, we're going for a visual impact and really engaging people visually with the magazine. So the photography from Pete Salutis, I think, is incredible, and we want to have a lot of illustration in the magazine. And then...
You're kind of stealing my foraging book idea where I wanted to sketch the nettles and then take a beautiful photograph of the real nettles and then have a story below that ending in a recipe. And each chapter would be another thing that you forage, whether it be Dungeness crab, nettles, et cetera, et cetera.
That sounds wonderful. There was a book... Dylan Tomine, do you know who that is? And he's a writer on the island that wrote about foraging. I think it's called Closer to the Ground.
Oh, good.
It doesn't have the illustrations, though, but it's just about foraging around these parts. It's really good.
Well, that stuff's beautiful.
Yeah. And what's another fun? We have a family page or a couple pages where we want to feature youth voices and faces and fun crafts or family activities. So in this one, we teamed up with Rachel Knutson at Scrappy Art Lab.
Okay.
And she does, her whole thing is environmentally, conscious crafting, reusing materials and using natural materials. So she's got all kinds of camps for kids and, classes for adults. So we teamed up with her and she came up with a craft for kids. And so that's a page in our magazine creating
cool.
nature mandalas, which is like this making cool designs with pine cones and flowers and rocks and shells. And yeah.
Okay, now you lost me. But I've seen her lab, and it's really cool, and I like the concept.
Yeah.
How are the tie-ins with local businesses? Are you doing the old slick backdoor thing where pay me, I'll put your advertisement in the magazine, I'll write a little article on a couple pages down the road? Do you guys do that type of stuff?
No pay for play.
No pay for play. Good.
No.
Honest publication. I like that. Is there any thought of moving it towards a visitors type magazine, like on the ferries or down on the waterfront, where people pick this up and learn more about Bainbridge Island and the greater West Sound here? I
think visitors are one element of our audience that we want to appeal to. So, kind of showcasing what's great about the area for people who live here and for visitors, and getting the magazine out in those places. Like we've got the Lodging Association we're gonna give them a stack for all the hotels in the area. And
how do you barter that deal to start with?
They were glad to just take them.
Oh, so it wasn't a floor space situation?
No.
What do I get for giving this away? Nice.
I mean, it's free to them, so yeah. And the magazine is free, so it's
So how many are you printing up each quarter?
14,000, a little over 14,000 this first issue, and hopefully expanding from there.
And is that based on home numbers or what?
Yeah, that's based on. So we're mailing out to all the residences on the island. So will show up in everybody's mailbox. So
that's a free magazine.
That's a little over 11,000
periodicals.
And then we're hitting some neighborhoods in Poulsbo and Kingston, and then also distributing to retail places and real estate offices, lodgings.
So you'll find stacks of them free at coffee shops and libraries and post office and
barn, hopefully.
doctors' offices and art galleries.
Oh, no, they don't do that in the doctor and dentist office
now
because of
not.
COVID.
That's right. Yeah, right. We don't have the doctor's offices right now.
But a doctor can advertise in there.
That's very true.
That's right.
Because if you're going to be in all those spots, it pretty much behooves a business to be an advertiser in I don't want to call it a slick magazine, but a highbrow, well-formulated magazine,
Mm-hmm.
I like those.
We couldn't agree more.
Yes. Well, I kind of like the lifestyle type magazines, like the who, what, why, and where, and what's going on around us.
Yeah, the human interest, like you said, that's my interest too, is telling those human stories and the people. And
yeah, I mean, when I first started this, people were telling me, you're going to run out of ideas. You live on a really small island. And I was like, yeah, maybe, where's my lane? Found it. It's human interest stories. Everybody has a story about something. And if there's 25,000 people on this island, it's a lot of stories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I still got room to grow.
Yep.
Yeah.
So do you guys, right?
Right.
Yep.
And hopefully even a broader array of stories by looking broader than the island and looking at Kitsap and everything going on. In fact, I subscribed to the Seattle Sunday Times, and they have a magazine called
Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, Pacific Northwest. And their cover story this week was about this guy in Bremerton. He fixes antique typewriters, and his story is fascinating. In fact, I picked up a antique typewriter at the children's thrift store a couple of years ago and took it to him.
You
so
sucker.
It was cool. I love that thing. It's got soul.
Yeah. Well, I guess from a writer's perspective too, that could be the motivation or a nice piece on your desk.
And my kids love to clack, clack, clack on that thing. So
don't break it though.
Yeah, but so just really all kinds of stories, I was like, ooh, I want to write that story. Might have to save it for another issue.
Those old typewriters and old sewing machines actually do really well on eBay. They're very collectible. I don't know why. But I don't know why an NFT is collectible, and I don't know a lot of things. What happened to baseball cards?
We'll try to explain that in the next issue for you.
Nice. So you're going to highlight some nonprofits as well?
Mm-hmm.
And how's that work? Just pick one randomly? Do you have a few nonprofits that you have in mind that you really subscribe to, like Helpline House or something like that do great work in the community that you want to highlight?
Yeah. who's in our first issue that one great thing is they've really turned into, they were very accessible advertising component of the magazine. So I was surprised how many nonprofits were, interested in advertising with us. So
you got to spend that money every year.
Yeah.
That's the thing about a nonprofit. And if you're a nonprofit and would like to support this show, hook me up. Begging for money today, aren't I, Leif? You guys
pay the bill somehow.
You think, yeah, somehow. You guys are trying to highlight environmental issues as well.
Yeah, actually, Alorie's just pulling up on her screen here for you.
Stewards of Salish Sea.
So one of the things that is really important to us is telling the stories, reflecting the diversity of the area that we cover in its fullness to everyone who lives here. And a big part of that, of course, is the indigenous tribes, the Suquamish and the Port Campbell Sklallam. And so in this first issue, we've got a feature story that I wrote about the Suquamish tribe's environmental work. Focuses on what they're doing to protect salmon and steelhead and protect the habitat especially.
Hold on. Let's go back to your article, Leif.
Yeah, okay.
These headphones do not work. You were saying about the Salish Sea and environmental writings?
So I wrote this, one of our feature stories is called Stewards of the Salish Sea, and it's about how the Suquamish tribe are carrying on Chief Seattle's legacy, some generations ago, the leader of their tribe, of protecting the natural environment around here, and particularly the habitat for salmon and other wild fish that they depend on as a food source, not just as a food source, but also as part of their deeply part of their spirituality and their identity as a people.
An ecosystem for the orcas and other sea life,
which they consider to be their relatives. And you hear their creation story is all about the tree people and the whale people and the salmon people, and they're all people to them. And so the work that they're doing to protect the salmon around Kitsap County is pretty remarkable. A lot of it is actually legal work. They've been one of the most important tribes battling in the courts to protect tribal treaty rights to fish and to gather shellfish. They've had a number of cases go on all the way to the Supreme Court, and one of them most recently was about culverts in Washington State, forcing the state to allocate money to remove bad culverts that are blocking fish passage up into their habitat higher up in the watersheds. And so I walked around in the Chico Creek watershed with one of the tribal biologists, learning about what they're doing there, and it's pretty remarkable. We got some great photos and a lot of info about what they're doing and how it's not just benefiting the tribe but benefiting everybody.
And my dad was really into those upper stream conservation acts and working the streams. Period. Getting the debris out and making fish ladders and stuff like that. Rest in power, Dad. Did you find out anything about damming and the farmed salmon culture?
Yeah, actually, I learned way more than I could possibly fit in the space we had in print. That's one of the things about print is space is at a premium. You can't just go on and on.
That's what's complimentary about a podcast. You can tell a certain amount of story in the print form, but then you can highlight the things that you had to leave out and have it in conversation on a podcast. I like that. So
the major dams are not really an issue right here in Kitsap County because there's no major river here.
Well, you see the Snake Dam controversy.
Well, right. So that's Snake River up the Columbia. The Snake River splits off by the Tri-Cities and goes up into Oregon and Idaho. Mm-hmm. And Leonard Forsman, the chairman of the Squamish tribe, is actually an outspoken advocate for removing those dams. He's the president of the ATNI, the Affiliated Tribes of Northwest Indians, I believe. And he also serves on the Climate Change Committee of a national intertribal organization and has been doing a bunch of advocacy at the national and international levels around the importance, the role that tribes can play in helping to combat climate change. And so it was really interesting just to learn about how this relatively small tribe on this small reservation here in Kitsap County is having this really outsized impact. They're punching way above their weight in terms of the
impactfulness.
Yeah, the positive impact that they're having for the environment at the hyper-local, national, and global levels.
That's where it starts, hyper-local. Yeah, politics, stewardship, all that stuff. Atlantic salmon in pens getting out, eating in their own feces, stuck.
Yeah, it's a nasty business.
80+% of salmon is farmed on your dinner table now in restaurants. It's an issue that I feel strongly both ways. I was wondering what you gleaned from it.
Yeah, Atlantic salmon, bad, basically. And actually, there's been I couldn't quote figures for you.
No fact checking here,
but right, but the market for wild for wild fish, native fish here in the Northwest has expanded dramatically as environmentalists and anglers and conservation activists and tribes have been working together over the last few decades to educate the public about the importance of wild fish and really doing battle to keep out these or to remove a lot of the Atlantic salmon from salmon farms around Puget Sound and up in British Columbia. I learned that back in the 90s when the Atlantic salmon first started getting farmed out here, the market for wild salmon just plummeted, and many of the local fishermen and the tribal fisheries just about went out of business. And so they've really had to work hard and fight to bring that back. And they're I'd say in the marketplace they're winning that battle now, which is good because we don't have a whole lot of time before some of these salmon species especially go extinct.
Yeah, it's tough. We have a governor who's a great environmental leader and ran on that platform for presidency, but still hyper-locally, he doesn't live but a mile away from us, basically, and there's a lot to be improved right here, whether it be the Superfund, the discharge of diesel into the areas from the ferry terminals, the leaky sewer plants that all run amok all through Kitsap County. I had heard some stat that all salmon have plastic or meth in them, and it's just that polluted. I would like our government here in Washington State to be the leader in environmental causes, especially around the ocean. Let's put fish back in the ocean, get rid of all those warheads, huh? It's a little crazy. You also want to highlight inclusion and equity and stuff like that. What kind of stories are you looking for to find and tell through that?
Yeah, I think,
lens.
So many discussions came up around the Black Lives Matter protests in 2020, and so we want to look at, how do we make our communities more welcoming and inclusive, and that's just an ongoing conversation I think a lot of people are having. So we wanted to put some attention on that. And that's another one of the stories that you'll find in our premiere issue is Leif spent some time with a leader in that area, Kuya Karen Vargas. She's a youth mentor, and
Karen's been on the show before.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, Karen. Yeah,
she's amazing.
We had a great hour and a half with her at the History Museum, and a really great story that Leif wrote came out of that. It was originally going to be like a brief Q&A, and we're like, no, this is so much more than that. So we've actually
She has a lot of knowledge to drop, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good resource.
And in addition to all the activism and mentorship that she's been doing with youth, she's a historian who's been
living it.
Well, and working with the historical museum on the island and with historical societies around the county and the libraries, putting on these exhibits, telling the stories of people of color over the last 150 years throughout the county.
Yeah, she's not that old.
No, she's not. But like the Kitsap Sun just had a piece about the commemoration of the post office in downtown Bremerton, which was renamed at the after Karen lobbied our congressman Derek Kilmer to name that post office after Dick Turpin, who was an African American sailor in the Navy way before the armed forces got integrated. He was in the Navy from the 1880s to 1905, and he was on the USS Maine that got sank in Havana Harbor in Cuba during the Spanish-American War. He saw action in the Boxer Rebellion over in China, and he was on the USS Bennington in San Diego Harbor in 1905 when it sank because a boiler exploded on board. And
how is he connected to the post office?
He saved the lives. He saved the lives of 15 people on that boat, swimming them to shore one by one. And then after he retired from the Navy, he retired to Bremerton and worked in the shipyard there for till he died in the 1960s. And so he was one of the most prominent African American people in Kitsap County in the 20th century, and traveled around giving motivational speeches during World War II to soldiers and sailors, rather. And so then Karen uncovered his story, or she learned about it from a pastor she knew in Bremerton, and then finally got that man's story to be recognized by the U.S. government by renaming the post office just last year, and
his story had kind of largely been forgotten.
It had, yeah.
Very cool.
So she brought attention to it.
Yep.
Okay, we should probably wind this up, but I have one story, you guys, or y'all. I'm trying not to put the emphasis on male and say you guys anymore.
I appreciate that.
It's my new New Year's resolution or whatever. It's kind of funny. Clarence Morawaki was saying that he wants to ban acronyms. That's his idea for
I love that.
for this year too. Because I always have to ask, what does ABC mean? I don't know.
Right, get the lingo out of
like
especially out of government.
Yeah,
proceedings.
don't talk like I should know what you're talking about.
Right.
The onus on you to explain what you're talking about. But there is another roundabout coming, Podcastville, to highway right down the middle of the island, and at a place called Addis Will. And that's a really small little loop of a road just off the highway. And there was a house there that had a sea harp built onto the side of the house. Gigantic harp. So when the wind would blow, it would play the harp for all the sailors and the people in the neighborhood. And it's rotting, and the building is sitting there just falling apart. But I would like to know the story about who designed that, who made it, and who lived there.
That's a great story.
Great.
Where exactly is that? Where is that?
Yeah,
Right, you know where Riatan is? The last
Ritan. right-hand road where you
That's the thing
pull
about
off and drop down underneath the end of the Agate Pass Bridge.
It's back up towards us here at Studio 15, and it's the left right before that instead of the right.
Okay. We'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
There's also a very close to old-growth tree that they want to take down for the roundabout, where Brenda, our other councilwoman, is fighting hard to save that.
That's where I remember hearing about that, was actually on your podcast when you interviewed Brenda.
Yes. Yeah, I met a guy who lived next to the Harp House and told me about it while we were doing the mass vaccinations at Bainbridge Preparers. So he's like, yeah, I live by that Harp House. And I was like, what are you talking about? But yeah, I'd love to check it out. And he doesn't know much about it because he just moved into town. But
yeah, and you bring up another area that we really are excited to tell the stories of the history of where we live and make that part of every issue of what we do. And in this premiere issue, we're talking about the 80 years since the exclusion of Japanese Americans from Bainbridge and the memorial and how it's evolving to honor, that history.
Speaking of Clarence Moriwaki,
Speaking of Clarence,
we interviewed him for that piece.
he just currently resigned from the board of
the Japanese American
Yeah.
Association.
But that would be the nonprofit that we have highlighted as the Japanese American Memorial in this issue.
Anything else you guys want to shoot out there?
Come celebrate our premiere issue this Friday at Art Walk on Winslow Way. We're going to be at Bainbridge Arts and Crafts Gallery.
Yep, that's the big gallery right next to the bookstore.
By Eagle Harbor Books?
Yep, right by Eagle Harbor
Right
Books.
next door to Eagle Harbor Books.
Yep.
We'll be there with giving out copies and doing a drawing or two.
Our friend Gary Bedell, a.k.a. DJ Sidecar.
DJ Sidecar!
He's going to be spinning some vinyl. And we'll have... we'll have copies of the magazine. There's going to be some other artists, a couple of artists from Port Townsend that are.
They always have great art in that gallery.
Oh, it's a
great
fantastic gallery.
That and the Robbie one. What's the
Robbie
one?
King?
Roby King, right across the way from there.
I like that gallery as well.
Yep.
And then Sotheby's, best food spread on Art Walk night. By the way, a little secret. Best wine, Millstream. Best time to go, 6 o'clock. There you go. You got all the information about this Friday's Art Walk and picking up a copy of Tideland Quarterly.
Tideland Magazine.
TidelandMag.com.
It is a quarterly.
Yes.
You're right about that.
The Soul of the West Sound. So that fits in. I got something for your mind, body, and soul, and you're coming with the soul.
Right.
I like it.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. And if people have ideas for stories that they'd like us to tell, then they should check out our website or come talk to us in person and pitch us their ideas. And if they want to advertise too, they can. Yeah,
let's keep this supported. This is good work. And I'm sitting here looking at an advanced copy. Very impressed.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Leif and Alorie, thank you for your time. You've been listening to Bystander. Be kind. Tell a friend, be a friend, and subscribe on Patreon. Thank you.